Hi, it's Becky, welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here, thank you for clicking on this video. Today I'm going to be sharing my experience about being medication free with Crohn's disease. I made the decision to go medication free about 5 months ago, and I didn't want to speak about it before now because I didn't feel like I had enough knowledge on it to sort of share with anyone. I feel like I've done enough now that I feel comfortable sharing what I've learned along the way. So I asked over on Instagram if anyone had any questions, so I'm going to go through and answer those now. One of the questions was, why did I decide to go medication free? And I just want to say it's not a decision I took lightly at all, and I did speak about it very briefly in a previous video which I will link somewhere. I did a lot of research, I spoke to my consultant, I spoke to a doctor, I looked into it a lot, but mainly I just trusted my instinct, and I didn't want to be on medication, so I trusted what I was feeling, and that was kind of the reason why. I'd also just like to say it's not something I'd recommend people doing. It's a very personal choice and you really have to look into it and do the research yourself before making that decision. This lady said, sorry if it's too personal, where is your Crohn's located? So that is not too personal at all, that's fine. So when I had my first capsule, I was told it was quite high up. And then when I got my hospital notes and read through them, it says that in the ileum as well, if that rings a bell. I haven't actually had the full-on like sit down and explained where everything is. To the best of my knowledge, it was high up and in the ileum, or if that is high up, then that is where it is. Do you take anything now? I don't take any actual medication prescribed by the doctor or the consultant, but what I've chosen to do is take vitamins, supplements and things like that to try and help my body. So I take turmeric, I take CBD tablets, I take a multivitamin, sorry, my tablets are over there, which is why I'm looking. I take magnesium, fish oil, and I think that's it. So I just take a few different sort of vitamins that I think help. I'm not actually the best at taking those every single day. I do forget sometimes, but I do think they help for the most part. Did you go plant-based? I heard it's good for Crohn's remission. I do try and eat plant-based sometimes, but I haven't gone full plant-based at all. I do still eat meat, I do still eat dairy, but I will try and have sort of vegan days maybe twice a week. I didn't actually start doing that because of Crohn's. I started doing that for different reasons. I do think it probably helps. Did your consultant advise you to stop your medication? No, they didn't. They told me about some of the side effects of the medication I was taking, and I said I wasn't happy taking that medication because of those side effects. They suggested I take steroids, and again, I have taken steroids before in the past, and I said I wasn't particularly happy taking steroids either, and they were kind of like, well, we don't know what you want us to do, and I still had some of the medication, so I said, oh, it's fine, just leave it, and then I just stopped taking it. I did speak to my doctor, like my general practitioner, before stopping it, and I asked her what she thought, and she said the medical answer would be no, keep taking your medication, but she said my personal answer would be do what you want and don't take the medication, basically. It's hard because I don't want to advise anyone to go against what their doctor says. You should do what your doctor is telling you, but I had such a strong feeling that I really didn't want to be on the medication that I just went with how I was feeling, and because my GP kind of backed me up, that did make me feel a little bit better about just stopping the medication. So no, it wasn't advised for me to do it, but it's fine. I've since told them I'm not taking any medication, and they seem fine with it because they asked how I was, and I said, well, I'm fine, I'm actually doing quite well. And I did a calprotectin test and it came back really good, so yeah, it was fine. Would you go back on medication? So I would, if the doctor said to me you need to go back on medication, then of course I would go back on medication, but how I am at the moment, I do not need to go back on medication. What is the main thing that you are doing differently? So I know this is going to be probably a little bit of a controversial answer, and I really don't want anyone to think that I don't know what the word is. I don't want anyone to think that I'm dismissing any feelings or dismissing any illnesses or anything like that. but the main thing that has changed is my mindset. And I know that sounds a bit airy-fairy and woo-woo and all of that. I didn't feel that ill. I had a stomachache for a couple of weeks, and then I went into the doctors, and then they didn't know what was wrong with me, and then they started doing all these different tests, and then they started talking about all these different things that could possibly be wrong with me. Then they started talking about cancers and such and all of this stuff, and then for a good year and a half I was being poked and prodded, and then I was told I had Crohn's, and the words that were actually said to me were, "You will be ill for the rest of your life." I mean, the whole diagnosis story is a different thing, but throughout that whole process, people were just telling me that I was sick, and they were just telling me that there was something wrong, and they were telling me all of these sort of bad things. Then when I started medication, the first medication didn't work and it made me worse, and then my results were getting worse. Then I tried a different medication, and again everything was just getting worse all the time. And that was all I was being told by doctors and by everyone around me as well. They were saying, "God, you look so poorly." Now, if I don't feel well, I won't tell anyone that I don't feel well. And again, that's not something I would recommend. If you don't feel well, you should tell people. But I now don't tell anyone, and every morning I tell myself that I'm healthy and all of that kind of stuff. And I know that sounds absolutely bloody bonkers, but so far that is working for me. And I don't for one second think that that will work for everyone, but that is the main thing that's changed, is my mindset. And yeah. What medications were you on before you had to stop? So throughout my Crohn's journey, I mean I've only actually been diagnosed for, I think, about a year and a half I've been diagnosed for, and in that time I've been on steroids. I've been on a couple different steroids, azathioprine, and I was on adalimumab. So I took quite a few different things. Steroids, my face blew up straight away and I didn't like how they made me feel. Azathioprine actually turned out I was allergic to, so that wasn't good, and then they decided they didn't want to give me anything else from that kind of category of drugs. And then adalimumab was what I was on last, and at first that worked quite well, but then I just started to get more kind of side effects with it. So I'd had a variety of drugs tried before I decided to go medication free. Does being off medication worry you? The GP did say to me, obviously, you being off medication does mean the chances of an emergency operation are a bit higher. So that concerned me a little bit, but now living how I have for the last 5 months, I don't feel concerned not being on medication. I will put a video somewhere. In that video I feel so rough and I'm crying in the video, and I cannot tell you the amount of days I had like that where I felt so ill still, and I just don't feel that ill anymore. And it might be that the adalimumab got me into remission just before I started coming off of it, because they didn't actually check before I came off of it, because obviously I just made that decision. So it might be that that got me in remission and I've just ended up being in remission medication free sort of by chance. For me personally, it doesn't really worry me not being on medication because I now know how much better I feel. Are there any foods you avoid? If so, what? I haven't avoided any foods at all. The only thing I have started to avoid a little bit is cow's milk, but that isn't actually anything to do with my Crohn's, that's to do with my skin. I think cow's milk makes my skin flare up. Coffee can set me off a little bit. Obviously eating crap food is going to make you feel crap regardless of if you have an illness or not. So I do try and eat a fairly balanced diet, and I do try and eat fairly healthy most of the time. And I also try and eat quite regularly, whereas before I maybe would skip breakfast and then by the time I got round to eating it would hurt. So I now try and eat a bit more regularly, and that seems to help. I watched your video where you said you were going medication free and you said about side effects. What side effects were you having? So from the whole time I had quite a few side effects. So my hair started falling out, my nails got really weak and they would split really easily. There was one point where I was trying to pop tablets out of their tablet packet and it was so hard to pop the tablets out because my nail would split and the ends of my finger would split while I was popping the tablets out, so I'd actually end up with bleeding hands just trying to get my tablets out. My skin started to get really bad. I had really bad acne. That is slowly but surely getting back to normal. I had quite a lot of weight gain, headaches, stomachache, joint pain, my legs hurt. The day after my adalimumab injection, my leg would be just like no good to the world. It was so painful and it felt like I was like dragging it along. I felt so tired all the time. A lot of these side effects, I didn't know whether they were because of the medication or because of my Crohn's playing up. I just didn't know what it was. Whereas now that I'm not on any medication, I know whatever is going on in my body is because of something I've done or something that's going on inside me. It's not because I've taken a tablet, or it's not because I've had to inject myself with something. Now, if something is amiss, I can typically trace it back, and it's just a lot easier to work out what's working and what isn't. What advice would you give to someone who wanted to try the medication-free route? So firstly, definitely do your research and try your hardest not to let any outside influences influence you. I did personally stop following a sort of Crohn's group I was in. Other thing I would say is speak to your doctor, speak to your consultant. They might not give you the answer that you want, but at least you can take what they say into consideration and it gives you a kind of more rounded view. I would also say get a second opinion like I did with my GP. I would say do a bit of trial and error as well. When I first went medication free, I was a lot more cautious than what I am now. And I was a lot more like religious with the taking of the tablets and all of that kind of stuff. Whereas now I'm a little bit more chilled about it because I know I can be, and I've learned a lot more about my body. So I'd say, yeah, take the time to learn about your body, take your time to sort of know what feels right. They are all of the questions that you guys asked. If you do have any more questions, pop them in the comments and I will of course answer them. I just want to say again, do not go medication free without doing your own research and really making sure that it's right for you. This has worked for me, but it doesn't mean it's going to work for everyone. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe and also hit the like button. I hope you are having a beautiful day whatever you are doing, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.